Gilmore.
Well, Tancorla, I mean that reply confirms, I think, what the problem is and has been with all of this. That senior figures in the Catholic Church failed then, and in respect of that note appear to fail now, to grasp the urgency of what was at stake here. What was at stake here was the abuse, widespread abuse of children over a long period of time. And every time somebody comes along and says, you know, initially in the case of parents and others who went to priests and bishops and said something is going on here, that they were blocked, they were frustrated, there was, the tracks in the sand were being covered rather than investigate the issue. And frankly, that reply that you have given there in respect of all of the diplomatic movements that were made at different times appears to me to confirm that that appears to have been the approach taken in the Vatican as well. Now, we're now about to have a discussion later today on the Murphy report. It's coming after the Ryan report, coming after the Ferns report. We have an investigation going on in Cloyne. Can I ask you, first of all, if the remit of the Murphy Commission will now be extended to look at other dioceses where issues have been raised about the abuse of children, first of all. Secondly, I think the issue here that has to be addressed is the state's response. Do you think, Taoiseach, that it is acceptable that any bishop who has been criticised in the terms that were expressed in the Murphy report about failure to deal with the abuse of children should continue to be patron of schools where children are attending right now? And can I put it to you, Taoiseach, that this is something the government can deal with? Section 33 of the Education Act provides that the Education Act of 1998 gives the Minister for Education the power to make regulations governing the terms under which the patronage of schools may be issued. Could I ask that a regulation be made whereby any person who has been criticised for failure to deal with issues of child protection, as we have seen recently in the Murphy report, should not continue or should not be allowed to be the patron of a school, with the overall responsibility for the school ethos, for the appointments of boards of management, ultimately for the appointments of teachers and for the governance of schools. I just don't understand why we have a situation that people who have been so roundly criticised for their failure to protect children can continue to be patrons of schools.
Deputy Gilmore.
Well, first of all, the Taoiseach didn't respond to the question that I put to him as to whether he would agree to have the remit of the Murphy Commission extended to examine allegations in other dioceses, and I would invite him to answer that part of the question. In respect of his response about the patronage of schools, it certainly comes as news to me that the patronage of our schools is on such an ex officio, almost honorary basis that has been described by the Taoiseach. In this country, Taoiseach, the bulk of our schools are denominationally controlled. And they are denominationally controlled through this system of patronage, whereby schools in a diocese are placed under the patronage of the bishop in that diocese. And the bishop in that diocese appoints, has role in respect of the appointment of the Board of Management and the chair of the Board of Management, and they are, Taoiseach, the power. They are the power in respect of the schools. Now, I agree with you, it is not your business or my business as to who should be bishop in any particular diocese, but I respectfully suggest that it is the business of government and of the state to determine who should be patrons of schools that are funded by the taxpayer, that are supported by the state, and to which the majority of children in this country go. And I submit to you that anybody who has been criticised in the terms that the Murphy report has criticised some bishops should not continue to be patrons of schools with the overall responsibility that they have for schools. Whose bishop in the diocese is a matter for the church and for the individuals concerned. But who is patron of our schools is a matter for the state, and it is time that the state and that the government asserted its authority in this area. This is something that you can do. This is something that can be done even under, doesn't have to be legislated for, under primary legislation. You already have the 1998 Education Act. It provides that regulations can be made, setting down the way in which patronage can operate. And I think that this is a test of whether or not we're learning anything from these reports, whether we're going to follow the logic of these reports, and whether the government and the state is going to stand up to this kind of thing, or whether we are going to continue with the kind of latter-day deference that gave rise to this problem in the first place. So it is time, I believe, for government to stand up here and say, no, people who have been found to have neglected their duty, to have not followed up on complaints that were made about the serious abuse of children, should not continue to be in these powerful positions in respect of schools where young children are attending.